Welcome to EnglishPass Podcast, brought to you from our local studio in Calgary. I'm your host, Samantha, and today we're diving into an exciting topic, making small talk. Whether you're a beginner or intermediate learner, in this podcast, we're helping you level up your English listening and reading skills. And before we get started, let me tell you that the sponsor of this episode is TypeFit, keyboard typing practice and learning platform. Now, let's talk about the weather in Calgary on Saturday, February 28, 2026. It's currently minus 12 degrees Celsius, which is about 10 degrees Fahrenheit, with snow conditions. It is so cold this snowy Saturday that even the snowmen are knocking on the door to ask for hot cocoa. Today, we're exploring something really interesting, making small talk. This is an engaging subject for English learners because it covers a lot of practical vocabulary and real-world situations. So, let's dive right in. Small talk is often described as the social glue that holds our daily interactions together, serving as a polite and informal way to start a conversation with someone you do not know well. While some people dismiss it as being shallow or unimportant, it actually plays a vital role in building rapport, which is a close and harmonious relationship where people understand each other's feelings or ideas. Think of small talk as a social lubricant. It eases the friction of meeting a stranger and helps transition into more meaningful topics. In many ways, small talk is less about the information being shared and more about the connection being established. When you ask a coworker about their weekend, you are not necessarily looking for a detailed itinerary. Instead, you are signaling that you recognize them as a person and are open to interaction. This type of communication is what linguists call phatic communication. This term refers to speech used to perform a social function rather than to convey specific information. For example, when you say, "How are you?" to a cashier, you are following a social etiquette, which is the customary code of polite behavior in society. You are not expecting a medical report. You are simply acknowledging their presence. Understanding this concept is the first step toward becoming comfortable with small talk. It is not about being brilliant or deep. It is about being present and friendly. Let us look at a concrete, real-world example of small talk in a professional setting. Imagine you are standing in the office kitchen waiting for the coffee machine to finish brewing. A colleague from another department walks in. Instead of staring at your shoes in silence, you might say, "I think this machine is getting slower every day, isn't it?" This is a classic icebreaker, which is a comment or question intended to relieve tension or start a conversation. By commenting on a shared environment, the slow coffee machine, you give the other person an easy way to respond. They might agree, complain about the lack of caffeine, or mention that the machine in the break room upstairs is faster. From there, the conversation could naturally move toward their workload or their plans for the upcoming holiday. A second example occurs frequently in neighborhood life. Imagine you are walking your dog and you see a neighbor working in their garden. You could stop for a moment and say, "Your roses are looking incredible this year. What is your secret?" This is an effective strategy because it is a genuine compliment and asks for their expertise. People generally enjoy talking about their hobbies and successes. This simple interaction builds a sense of community and makes future, more important conversations easier because you have already established a friendly foundation. In many English-speaking cultures, The weather is the most famous topic for small talk. Have you ever wondered why British or American people talk about the rain so much? It is not because they are obsessed with meteorology. It is because the weather is a safe, universal topic. Everyone experiences it, and it is almost never controversial. If you are standing at a bus stop and it starts to pour, turning to the person next to you and saying, "I really should have brought my umbrella today," is a way of sharing a mundane moment. Mundane refers to things that are very ordinary or lack excitement. But in the world of small talk, the mundane is actually a very powerful tool. Interesting historical context shows us that small talk has evolved differently across the globe. In high-context cultures, such as those in many parts of Asia or the Middle East, small talk might involve asking about one's family or health as a sign of respect and genuine interest before getting down to business. In contrast, low-context cultures like the United States or Germany might keep small talk brief and move more quickly to the point. However, even in the most direct cultures, skipping the hello and "how are you" can often come across as cold or rude. Understanding these cultural nuances is essential for anyone learning English to communicate globally. To help structure your small talk, many people use the Ford method. This is an acronym that stands for family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. These 4 areas are generally safe and productive topics for conversation. For instance, if you are at a friend's birthday party and meet someone new, you can use these categories to keep the conversation flowing. You might ask, "How do you know the host?" to touch on social connections, or "What do you do for a living?" to discuss occupation. If the conversation feels a bit stuck, you can pivot to recreation by asking, "Do you have any fun trips planned for the summer?" By rotating through these topics, you avoid the trap of superficial talk that feels like an interrogation. Superficial means existing or occurring at or on the surface, and while small talk starts there, the goal is often to find a hook that leads to something deeper. Consider a 4th example, a professional networking event. These events can be intimidating, but small talk is your best tool for survival. Instead of trying to sell yourself immediately, try to find a commonality. You might say, "The speaker made some really interesting points about technology, don't you think?" Or even something simple like, "It is quite a crowd here tonight. Have you been to this event before?" If the other person responds with a short answer, do not panic. Just offer a little bit of information about yourself to keep the balance. This is often called banter, which is the playful and friendly exchange of teasing remarks or light-hearted conversation. In a networking context, banter helps to lower the stakes and makes both parties feel more relaxed. A common misconception about small talk is that you have to be an extrovert to be good at it. In reality, being a good listener is far more important than being a great talker. When you ask a question, pay close attention to the answer. If someone says they had a busy but good weekend, follow up on the word busy. Ask, "Oh, did you have a big project or just a lot of social plans?" This shows that you are listening and genuinely interested. It also takes the pressure off you to come up with new topics constantly. Another real-world example is the retail environment. Suppose you are at a grocery store and the line is moving slowly. You might catch the eye of the person behind you and say, "I think everyone in town decided to go shopping at the exact same time." This shared observation creates a brief moment of solidarity. It turns a frustrating situation into a shared human experience. Even if the conversation only lasts 30 seconds, it changes the atmosphere from one of collective annoyance to one of collective patience. Let us look at the nonverbal side of small talk, which involves cues. Cues are signals or hints, such as body language, tone of voice, and eye contact. If you are talking to someone and they are looking at their watch or leaning away from you, those are cues that they might be in a hurry or ready to end the conversation. Part of being a skilled communicator is knowing when to stop. Ending a conversation is just as important as starting one. You can use a polite exit phrase like, "Well, I do not want to take up too much of your time, but it was great chatting with you." Or, "I think I see my friend over there. I should probably go say hello." This leaves the other person feeling respected rather than dismissed. One more example can be found at the gym or a local club. If you see someone using a piece of equipment or working on a hobby you are interested in, you might say, "I have been thinking about trying that class. Do you find it very challenging?" This is a low-pressure way to start a conversation because it is based on a shared interest. It allows the other person to share their experience and advice, which most people are happy to do. As you build your skills, you will notice that small talk follows a certain rhythm, a back and forth that builds over time. You start with a comment on the immediate environment, follow up with a light question, listen for a hook, and then share a small detail about yourself. For instance, if you are at a wedding, you might start by saying, "The ceremony was beautiful, wasn't it?" After they agree, you might add, "I have known the groom since university. We used to study in the same library." This gives the other person several paths to take. They can talk about the ceremony, their own university days, or how they know the couple. Finally, remember that everyone feels a little bit awkward sometimes. The goal of small talk is not to be perfect, it is to be kind. By mastering these simple exchanges, you open doors to new friendships, professional opportunities, and a more connected daily life. Whether you are discussing the weather, a slow elevator, or a delicious cup of coffee, you are participating in an ancient human ritual that says, "I see you, and we are part of the same community." And that is a very big thing for such small talk to accomplish. And that's all for today's episode of EnglishPass Podcast. I hope you found this helpful. Remember to practice what you've learned and don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how we improve. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and join us next time. Let me remind you that the sponsor of the episode is TypeFit, and I suggest to check the link at the description. I'm Samantha, and I'm excited to be your host for many more fascinating episodes to come. Until then, keep learning and keep